It's possible to expand your leadership capacity without exhausting yourself. Why founders suffer from unfulfilled intentions, and how to coach leaders into satisfying results. The reason we never find time to do more is because we don't know how to map a path through uncharted territory. It all feels like no man's land. That's why we need to kick into what I call pioneer gear. Instead of explaining the new terrain, what everything we hope for is going to look like, we need to internally expand our sense of territory. And we do that by claiming personal ownership of the new opportunities. Now, taking personal ownership requires humility. We're accepting the fact that we're going to have to figure things out as we go. And if you have to have everything dialed in before you begin, then you're always going to struggle with growing your leadership capacity. Most founders and leaders are trying to maximize their capacity in their margins, not in their momentum. So here's what I mean. Your margin is your free time or the unstructured space in your day. This could be the early morning, late night, or the in-between times. It could even be an off day. And generally, this is when your external communications are lower. And that's what gives you the sense, I have more bandwidth. I can focus on making my own progress. However, this margin is actually prime real estate in your leadership journey. And yet most founders and operators misunderstand that. And so they don't know how to respect that space. They misuse their margins by treating it as a shortcut to get ahead. Newsflash, your margin is not a shortcut to get ahead. And yet, so many founders and business owners are driving off-road through their margins all the time, crisscrossing into these beautiful open fields in their day and on their calendar landscape. Or worse, they're building makeshift structures that just clutter and lower their overall capacity. It just makes sense why it's so tempting to work on getting ahead in your margins. There's no set way to do things yet. You just go however you want, the way you feel when you're inspired. However, the painful trade-off here is that you're losing more in the long term than you're gaining in the short term. Do we go through seasons where we have to put in extra hours? Yes. But what if you're overworking yourself? What if you're extending or overextending a 2-week trip to the promised land, so to speak, into a 38-year wilderness season? It may be necessary for your situation, but the point is still the same. We need to see the value of these unstructured spaces in our lives and embrace them. Instead of looking for shortcuts that take much longer in the long run, we need to stop turning these temporary shelters into lifelong sentences. We need to learn how to make progress under pressure. So back to this word picture of margin, the in-between spaces in our days and our decades. If you think that that's the time and that's the space where you can really get ahead, then you may be overworking yourself. And that's why we do this to ourselves over and over again, burning at both ends of the wick, so to speak. You may be treating the unstructured spaces in your life in an unhealthy way. When pioneering in leadership, we don't get ahead in our margins. We practice trust by getting away. And the more we get away, the more we find ourselves getting ahead. Now, let me explain what I mean. The practice of getting away is going to be both personal and professional. There are times and spaces that we need to claim to build, but there are also times and spaces that must be reserved or even protected for growing. So, metaphorically and possibly metaphysically, where do you have space in your day, in your life for a forest? I really hope that you're following this analogy. I mean, visually on your calendar, in your schedule, there's going to be unstructured spaces where things just take care of themselves. And you don't manage a wilderness, you basically safeguard it from being destroyed for short sighted benefits. Sure, you can build a campfire or a base camp there. You may even one day eventually create a lodge, but the real value of that territory isn't to clear it all down and drop concrete parking lots on it. And yet, that's what I see founders and leaders doing all the time. They scrape every minute they can to somehow optimize it into a system of their own making, and they're turning their lives into this unrecognizable beige work life blur in the name of work life balance. There is time for structure and there is time for the unstructured. But what I've noticed more often is a blatant act of trespassing on the part of many founders and leaders, in that they're crossing the line with self induced forms of sabotage in the spirit of unrestrained hustle culture. Now, in transparency, I'm not actually advocating that we lower the bar on our formation or our progress. I mean, I still hope to do more, hopefully by becoming more in the aspirational sense. And I gladly admit that I still need a lot of work. I'm working out my own salvation with fear and trembling, but not with a white knuckling approach to willpower. Actually, my motivation for working harder is the hope that Jesus's grace is at work in and through my obedient believing in him. In other words, I'm working out my salvation with fear and trembling, much like Noah was building the ark that overcame the flood and came into the promised new day on the other side. So, what does this have to do with time management? Well, my point is that it's possible to expand your leadership capacity without exhausting yourself. Instead of blindly committing yourself to overhaul the unstructured spaces in your life, like manually clearing and constructing in the wild, you can actually inherit the bigness of those spaces and simply benefit from the value they offer without your supervision. And here's what's really transformational about this whole idea. When you remap your personal sense of territory, embracing bigger swaths of unstructured space, your leadership capacity expands without all of that grunting and grinding. Look at Hebrews 4:1. It says in the ERV, we still have the promise that God gave those people. That promise is that we can enter his place of rest. So we should be very careful that none of us, it says none of you, fails to get that promise. So if you've tried to personally micromanage every minute of your day, then you're exhausting yourself before the end of the first week. However, when you embrace a bigger view in life, resisting the tendency to control how things look or go, you enter into these amazing spaces where you actually benefit in new and unexpected ways. So, tactically, here are three ways to protect your margin and make progress within your momentum. Number one, don't vandalize your margin with idealistic visions of getting ahead or getting more done. Number two, treat your margin as real estate that you can enjoy while you make investments over time that are multiplying or repurposing them. And number three, momentum is built in the spaces you can structure, not the margins where you cannot, or the margins where you choose to leave unstructured. So, how do you expand your sense of territory? You embrace the large view of the landscape ahead of you without embedding all of the preconceived logistics. Your vision expands your bandwidth to handle both the structured and the unstructured parts of that new boundary line. And that's going to free you up to enter the new territory without feeling daunted by the scale of it. You kick into what I call pioneer gear. So let's remap your leadership capacity based on three practical scenarios. Number one, you know that working out is important, but you haven't been able to nail down a consistent rhythm that leads to results. The reason is because it's hard to map uncharted territory. You've never been there before, and your plan depends on consistency that you don't have yet, since everything around you is new and unfamiliar. So, the wrong way to approach this is by trying to work out in your margins, thinking that you'll make more progress in the unstructured parts of your day. Actually, we don't get the chance to replenish or to get ready for the time when the real work can happen. So instead, we're going to use the unstructured spaces in our life to get away, venturing deeper and further into this new territory that we're personally owning. And it's this sense of exploration that's going to become the opposite of the exhaustion. We're coming back to the structured parts of our life more energized, more engaged. We see the structured parts of our week as the real time dedicated to work harder, work smarter, not just work longer. When that time is finished, we get away again, taking in the bigness of our new identity within this expanded territory. And this keeps us connected to the why while we're figuring out how to make it work. Number two, you believe that a breakthrough that your business needs is going to come in the form of a book that can multiply your core message. In theory, it seems exciting and even doable. However, in practice, it's new territory for you. You've never personally done this before, so every step you take is going to be hard earned. You're figuring out the best way to accomplish that idea within your unique context or scenario. You've got some potential routes that you could take, like reaching out for help or at least advice. However, you still have to put in the legwork to actually create the book and navigate the complexity of making it effective in your emerging leadership landscape. The wrong way to get there is misusing your margins, trying to shortcut things without clear structure. You feel like the morning is free, so you book it, no pun intended. But then the next week's terrain looks completely different. Your progress stalls, and the list of unprocessed decisions pile up. You defer and then wonder, how do you get back to the morning work sessions that you had going for a while? Why that doesn't work anymore is because you were trying to get ahead in your margin, not with momentum. The momentum you need to accomplish that idea is waiting in the time that you can structure, not the unstructured time that you experience. The better way would be to embrace the expanded territory of being an accomplished author and thought leader, even before you know the logistics involved. I mean, really own that opportunity on a personal level. And during your unstructured time, you're not trying to work extra or overthink shortcuts. You're just living in that new paradigm. Wow, I can do this. I see myself making progress even before I know the exact path. And this works for you because you're not trying to micromanage the forest. You're just giving yourself permission to go there. And during that unstructured time, it benefits you in unexpected ways. And then you venture deeper into that territory, believing that you can inherit it. And when you return to the structured parts of your day, like your work sessions, you're not acting like an outsider to that space anymore. You're owning the opportunity with way more intentionality, intensity, and an upgraded identity. You're less likely to quit, you're more likely to stay present and make progress under pressure. And you're working within the context where momentum is now happening. You have a process that's getting better every day. You actually found space to build a meaningful structure for your future. Eventually, this new map isn't just uncontrollable chaos or unrealistic conformity. It's a beautiful garden city where your week reflects areas that you've intentionally built alongside other areas where you've intrinsically benefited from what's been growing around you. This is purposeful, yet without the high pressure to be the change agent for every good outcome. And even when there's pain and difficulty, you have ways to retreat and find refuge. Number three is you're a founder who hopes to delegate more by the end of this year. I mean, first off, who doesn't, right? Well, the wrong way to force this is to max yourself out. You scrape and claw every inch of your waking time to make things work, essentially adding more and more to do before or without first expanding your leadership capacity. And by that, I mean your leadership capacity is your ability to take personal ownership of that opportunity with a new sense of territory or responsibility. Inevitably, if you are forcing this and you're maxing yourself out, then you're either going to do one of two things. Either you're going to prematurely initiate a string of false starts that you cannot sustain, or you're going to spend money that you can't justify on a codependent counterfeit that looks like your solution. So you're still stuck, but now the rut is deeper than when you started. And what's really going on is that you're depleting yourself on a maxed out operating system. You're not short on time, you're not out of opportunities, but really the issue is your bandwidth and your capacity. See, you're exhausting yourself by misusing the margins in your life instead of appreciating them and, frankly, leveraging them to expand your leadership capacity. I believe that with an upgraded identity comes expanded leadership capacity, And then out of that, a greater sense of territory. And that's how you get ahead. That's how you experience momentum. And that's how you can preserve those margins to keep getting away. The better way to become a leader who delegates effectively at scale would be to leverage the momentum you already have by building within the time you can structure, not making cheap trades with your valuable margin. If Noah's example could reason with us today, it seems clear that we always have enough time to do the work that the Lord gives us. The rains came and the floodwaters showed up after the ark was ready. That doesn't mean that Noah procrastinated or that he could, holding back the judgment somehow. Actually, it suggests the opposite, that the Lord prepares us ahead of time to do the work that's needed on time. To all the founders and leaders, I'm here to pioneer with you. Please share my podcast, Prepare to Go There. Join my next event training, the Prepared Leaders Challenge. Or you can ask a question about your leadership context or ask a question about executive coaching with me by going to peterburchfield.com. Remember, the future has so many fields waiting for you, so prepare to go there.